Hi again. So in the last segment, we learned how to do find one, find, and count, but we didn't look at how to limit the results based on any sort of query criteria. So that's what we're going to do in this segment. So just to start things off, I wrote a little program which we're going to modify. We create a Mongo client, a DB, and a DB collection, and drop the collection just like we've been doing. And I changed the insert a little bit. I'm still inserting 10 documents, but I'm inserting documents with 2 fields now, just so we can construct some more interesting queries. There is a field x, and its value is a random integer between 0 and 1, and a second field y, which is a random integer between 0 and 99. And towards the bottom of the program, I'm counting the number of documents in the collection, and I'm finding them all and printing them out each one by creating a cursor and calling hasNext in a while loop and calling next for each document, and then closing the cursor. So let's run this, and we should expect a count of 10 and 10 documents. So let's see what it looks like. And we do have a count of 10 and 10 documents. You can see x is either 0 or 1 and y falls between 0 and 99. So now let's limit the results, and we're going to do that with a criteria which is represented as a document, and we know that in Java when we want to create a document we use basic DB object. So I can say DB object, call it query equals new basic DB object, and let's query for documents where the value of x is 0. So I created a simple basic DB object, basically a query by example where there's a field x with value 0. And now I'm going to take that query and plug it into my method calls. So I'm just going to put count of query and find query. And on average, since we're using a random number generator, we should expect to see around 5 documents, but it will vary based on the random number generator. So in this case, we found 4 matching documents. All of them have 0 for x, and presumably all the other documents have got a value of 1 for x. So a simple query which limited the results both for count and for find. We can also create a compound query, and similar to the shell, we're going to do that just by appending to this document representing our criteria. So let's say I want to select, or I want to query for all documents where x is 0 and y is greater than 10 and less than 90. So I can do that by appending a query criteria for y, where the value of the criteria is another basic DB object where y is greater than 10 and less than 90. So let's run this again, and we should expect to see only documents where x is 0 and y is between 10 and 90. And that is the case. We run it. We can run it several times, and we can see that y is always falling between that range. The number of documents returned varies based on the random number generator, but it always matches the criteria. Now, there's one other way that the driver offers to query, because you can see here that we're using these strings greater than $GT and $LT, and in some cases it would be nicer to use a class that gave you some more helper methods for commonly used query operators. And the Java driver does have such a class, and it's called Query Builder. And I'll show you how to use this by creating a query using Query Builder that is equivalent to the query we just created with basic DB object. So we do it like this. We say querybuilder.start, and we'll say x, and if we want to just do an equality match, we use is, and we can say 0, so we're saying x is 0, and because query criteria are implicitly ANDed together, but here we have an explicit method and we'll say y greater than 10 and less than, we'll change it to 70 this time. And if we go down here, we can change our method calls to say builder, but we can't pass a builder to count because it's expecting a DB object for the criteria. But the builder can create a DB object using the get method of the builder. So we change that to builder.get, builder.get here, and we're no longer using query, but I'll just leave that in, and we'll rerun it. In this case, we only have one match. We can run it a few more times. This time we have 4, but essentially the same results using Query Builder as for dbObject. So it really depends on what you like. Some people like to just use basic dbObject, and some people like to use Query Builder. It's really your choice which one you want to use. Alright, let's go to the quiz. So the quiz is, given a collection of documents with 2 fields named type and score, what is the correct line of code to find all documents where type is equal to quiz and score is greater than 20 and less than 90? And this is multiple choice, but you can select more than one answer.